made significant progress and established that foundation that you talked about. Gotten some good results. What's the next step now after 7 games and some decent output?
Yeah, we spoke after the match in Columbus, and I think that the communication I gave you about where I saw things over the course of the first 7 matches was accurate. And I think that was the right time to tell you that. And it was the right time also to communicate that to our group, particularly given that we come away from that match and we're not fully satisfied in that match, right? So the communication that answers your question now and was really a lot of what our talk has been and our actions on field have been since the beginning of this week, coming back into work and getting ready for Orlando, is we need more complete performances now. Now we need to see everything all the way out. And our behavior and our identity, I think, is something that we can feel good about. But are we seeing it every single play throughout the entire course of a match? And the answer is sometimes, but it needs to be all the time.
What roster deadlines coming up, or transfer window deadlines coming up? Do you anticipate anything, or are you just kind of saving things for the summer?
I don't. I would say the summer window is more likely to see some activity. But again, I've told you the whole time, I don't predict a lot of activity in this season.
Yeah, Coach, taking on this week, obviously, where you guys stand at the table compared to where they're at, do you look at it as like a match that I know everyone's a must win, but when you see a team close to the bottom of the table, is it one of those ones where you're like, we really need 3 points from a team against Orlando? Or is it you approach it the same way depending on where they're at?
Yeah, I think it's too early to really look too much into where the table is right now. I think that's going to change significantly over the course of the year. And what I would say about Orlando City is that they're well coached, always play with a lot of intensity, always have a lot of individual quality, and they're going to be a difficult opponent. So I can't say that I look at anywhere where they are in the standings right now. We're again very much focused on how we want to go and execute our match plan. And we're going to need to do that against them. And we're going to need to do that at home in order to have a complete performance to try to secure 3 points. That's obviously our goal.
Guys being up against Columbus and obviously them scoring close to the end of the match. You talk about trying to put a full match in. You're back at home. Haven't lost on the road, but you've lost once at home. How do you guys kind of take how the result you got, kind of put it towards this week's practice as you prepare to hopefully get a win out of it?
Yeah, when I talk about complete performances, I look back at that Montreal match. We don't find a second goal in that match, and that could be, you could chalk that up to saying, okay, how do we find that moment in order to make ourselves feel more comfortable? But we saw the match out at 1-0. We score late, and we had a very good performance in that particular match, and we want to replicate that, particularly at home, to see things out in the way that we should in order to put ourselves in the best position against a really, really difficult Orlando City, in my experience, throughout the course of 3 seasons in MLS, a team that never makes it easy on you.
Last week it was, how do you respond from a loss? This week, how do you respond from a match you were leading and obviously giving up a goal late at the time? How do you guys respond to that as you hope to get?
Yeah, the response from the group this week has been what I expected to be, which is they're not happy with us not seeing out the match last week, but the majority of that match was what we've been building. So now how do we take another step forward? And that's really what the topics have been this week.
Now we'll go to Zoom. Matt?
We'll start things off with Dave Johnson.
Hey, Troy, you just mentioned that Orlando not easy in your experience dealing or playing against them. But can you just give some specifics of what makes them hard to play against?
They're led by someone that I think has really organized his teams in Oscar Perea and developed a culture and an environment in his teams over the course of his career that I admire. The way that they work together, the way that they fight, the way that the intensity at which that they play at is really, really impressive, coupled with the individual talent that they have in their team. And I think that there's underlying numbers there that we have to look at as well. They've been knocking on the door to score goals and they've been dangerous. Maybe they haven't, the chances that they've had haven't materialized into the amount of goals that they want, but it just tells you the story that it tells you is that they're dangerous. And once those opportunities start falling, they're going to get into an either even better rhythm of play and become even more dangerous. So it's our job to prevent that on the night, match their intensity, go above their intensity if we can, and be in our way.
And can you, we talked about this earlier, but just how important is, not beyond the goals, what Christian Benteke does to then set the tone for what you want to accomplish as a team?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing that he does beyond goals is he sets the tone every single day when he comes into the building with the way that he works, the way that he interacts with every single player, every single person in our staff. It's all a part of the culture that we are trying to build here and the environment that we're trying to create. He's a huge catalyst for this. And then when you talk about his performance, in training, in matches, of course, his presence in the box and scoring goals is number one, and we want it to be number one. That's the primary objective for a player of his talent, is to score goals. But his work rate against the ball has been exceptional. He allows us to relieve pressure so much with his hold up play and his ability to flick balls on. So it really, we've gotten more out of our designated player in Christian Benteke than I even expected at the beginning of the year, and that just doesn't have to do with what he does in terms of goals and on-field progress or on-field performance. His off-the-field presence is really special, and again, I'm very lucky to work with a player like this, a person like this.
Next, we'll go to Byron Kerr.
Hey, Coach, thank you very much for the opportunity. Good to see you. Can you speak to Aaron Herrera on defense and your defenders and how important they are to how good you guys are this year, but keeping scores down?
I love it whenever Aaron Herrera's name gets announced at Audi Field. I love this because there's an immediate respect that you see that everyone, there's a different energy that goes through the building. And it's the type of energy that Aaron displays whenever he plays. And he's in both boxes. We ask a lot of him, but he's in both boxes. He's up and down the field, and he controls a lot of 1v1 situations. And he's a guy that you'll recognize against Montreal as a good example. On the one hand, he's attacking, he's getting forward, and then all of a sudden he's blocking a shot off the line. I mean, this is the type of quality and commitment that Aaron Herrera has displayed all year, and I'm very happy for him. And you match him up with the rest of our defensive group, and Lucas Bartlett, Chris McVeigh, Connor Antley, Pedro Santos, Matai. These guys have all worked really hard with Alex Bono to try to execute in a style of play that is very demanding of a back group. And I would give a lot of credit to all those guys about how we started the season.
Thank you.
We'll go back to the room, Matt. Steven?
Ted wasn't out there. Is he thigh bothering him again?
Yeah, it's actually a different issue, just a little bit of an adductor that's strained. So we're still monitoring that one, and his status for the weekend is still a little bit undetermined at this point.
The defense has been playing very well as a unit, as you just mentioned, and that's limited the opportunity for a guy like Matai, who's young, impressionable. Is there a concern or maybe a desire to get him some minutes because of his age and his developmental stage?
Yeah, it's for every one of our players. There's always a thought process about where they are, and if they're not getting the type of match minutes that we want, we're trying to supplement that in different ways. And so where Matai is right now, I spoke to him last week about this. He's someone that I see continuing to develop. And he's improving in so many different ways as a young center back, and who's playing in front of him right now. He's the type of person that's learning from those guys. And that's been a valuable experience that doesn't translate to match minutes, which is, part of his development as well. But for the time being right now, I think he's in the right place. When his number gets called on, and it will inevitably, he's going to be ready.
He's got that under 20. He's in that mix as well.
Yeah.
I imagine that there'll be call-ups again this summer.
There should be. He had a really good performance as far as I understand. I think he played 90 minutes and 60 minutes, somewhere in that range, the last camp. So hopefully he gets called back in.